Alrighty, welcome back to Mecha Mondays. I'm your intrepid narrator pilot Fragath, and today we're going to be reading through more of Lethal Heritage by Michael A. Stackpole. Um, as I've mentioned before, this is, as far as I know, my first time reading through this one, so any roughness is entirely my fault. Due to lack of preparation and basically sight reading it. So previously, we've been introduced to a couple of characters, some different aspects of the setting. We've been introduced to Felon Kell, who is part of a mercenary company that recently got done helping, I think, the Free Rasselhag Republic. I think. Yes. Stortalar city on Gunzburg. Which is part of the Radstadt province in the Free Rasselhag Republic. Rasselhag depends on how. I'm not sure what the official pronunciation is. Oh shit, I have to be much more careful with how I maneuver the cover. It's old, dry, and fragile, so the front cover on mine has, after last week, started to crack considerably. I'm going to have to repair that. Let's see. We've also been introduced to, um, what's his name? Victor Ian Steiner Davion, who is the child of royalty, two royal families in one, the Steiners and the Davions. And we've also been introduced to Kai Allard Lau, um, who has a bit, who has a similar background, but it's slightly more complicated in that he is the son of, I think the mother is on the Lao side, and she basically ran away from her family to meet up or marry so and so Allard, who was a big name mech warrior type, who now does skullduggery and intel for and spookery for House Steiner Davion. And Kai has like a bunch of self-loathing issues, and a girlfriend, and mostly more self-loathing issues, because the girlfriend is now an ex because he didn't want her to get bumped out of the heavy royal guard. Anyway, we'll find out more about these characters maybe, but this week it looks like we're going to be introduced to some new cast and characters already. This will probably be a shorter installment. Actually, it's going to be about on a par. We will be getting to Book 2, Claws of the Beast. But we won't be getting to that just yet. That'll be next week. But we'll be right up against it. Hold on. Yeah, it'll be a bit shorter than last week. As I've mentioned before, part of the setting involves what can generously be called racial stereotypes, racial and cultural stereotypes as part of the setting. Um, and we are about to be introduced to House Kurita, which has a strong Japanese influence, and they use what do you call them? Actually, we're not going to be introduced to House Kurita. We're going to be introduced to the Draconis Combine. Even better, uh, who are the Japanese influence? Well, actually, there's a bunch of Japanese influence throughout. Um, I get some of the factions confused now because it's been a while since I've been in the game. Anyway, there will be I can't remember the word. Honorifics. There's going to be a bunch of honorifics used. And I'm going to try not to have terribly racist accents. So there. Even if they would be completely appropriate. Um, But yeah, it was the 80s. It was a different time. You could do different things then. We hadn't all twigged to the fact that it wasn't necessarily cool to do. I apologize for history, I guess. Um, anyway, without further ado, I guess let's get crack-a-lackin'. Jeez, electrical tape. I want to use electrical tape on that. What's really annoying is that it's like still very much glued to the spine, so it doesn't like curl back. I've had books where the book material just fell, like the entire cover fell off. This is not that. This is the cover just literally ripping itself asunder. It's a shame, but it happens when you buy older books, especially when they were cheap paperbacks even back then, relatively speaking. Um, how much was this one? Does this have a price on it floating around? No, it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. Oh, here we go. I mean, I got it for $1, wherever I got it from. Ah, doesn't say how much it was when it first came out. Probably like $5 at most, if that. Anyway, let's get reading. Oh, one additional aside. This cover that you're seeing right now that I have for a cover image is, I think, from the second printing. Um, it is the one that you will see most replicated, but there are a few newer covers that have come out since. I guess the book has been reprinted a few times, um, which I didn't know, which speaks highly of its reception, I would think, um, and how good it was as a series, trilogy, whatever. Um, you will see a few multilingual variants of this cover as we go through, because I found a couple of those on my quick perusal of the Webernets. All right, now down to business. Maybe we'll get some actual giant robot action this week. I don't know. Let's find out. Chapter 5. Oh my gosh, I didn't hit the button. I'm hitting the button. Hello, Echo. You've tuned in early and everything. You get to hear me pronounce Japanese poorly. I'm so happy for you. Chapter 5. Edo, Turtle Bay, Pest Military District, Draconis Combine. 1 June 3049. Tai Shinyodama heaved his duffel bag from his shoulder and tossed it onto the rickety, iron-framed cot, whose springs squealed and creaked in protest. Kashira Kenji Yamashima looked up in dismay. Oh my god. This is going to be a sentence. Sumimasen, Yodama-san, he said. Tai Buford preferred the cot. He shrugged, indicating distaste for the previous occupant of the cinder-block-walled room. If you desire, I will obtain proper bedding for you. Shin smiled to himself and bowed slightly. Yes, tatami, please, Yamashima-san. When the rest of my things are offloaded... Oh, no, that isn't a question. When the rest of my things are offloaded from the dropship, you will see that they are brought up here? Yamashima bowed his graying head. Hi, shall this unworthy servant have your things unpacked for you? Shin smiled. Your mouthing the old courtesies is music to my ears after the weeks spent traveling here in that independent freighter. Shin noticed the absence of several joints on the man's little fingers, and the multicolored head of a snake against the yellow flesh of his neck. But I should not have expected anything less of you, should I? That will not be necessary, Shin said, but I am honored by your concern. I will see to the unpacking later. Glancing at the full-length mirror on the back of the door, he straightened up, trying to shake off the slump of weariness left from the week of traveling to Turtle Bay from the system jump point. There were slight discolorations beneath his eyes, too, but no one else would notice them. He combed his short black hair with his fingers, then smiled at Yamashima. I think I should pay my respects. Yamashima smiled like a tutor pleased with a pupil who has learned his lessons well. Taisa Torukito Niro asked that you join him for cha once you are settled. While you are meeting with him, I shall arrange your visit with the old man. Shin cocked his head inquiringly. Old man? Yamashima began to speak, then caught himself. His dark eyes darted from Shin's unblemished hands to the lapel of his black service tunic. Excuse me, Tai. I presume knowledge where I had only rumors. I meant no offense. Shin returned to the sergeant's deep bow. You were not rude, Yamashima-san. You were not in error. I was not aware that the Yakuza in Edo used that title for their lord. Yamashima straightened up, relief clearly visible on his seamed face. So, after you take me to the Taisa, Shin said, smiling, please do arrange my visit to the old man. Shin Yodama entered Taisa Tarukito Niro's office and knelt on the tatami mats before sliding the shoji paneled door closed. The translucent pearls of lacquered paper, especially those forming the southern wall opposite the door, let in enough light to brighten the entire room. He keeps his sanctuary uncluttered and simple. He draws his strength from this room. I can feel it. Shin bowed first to Tarukito Niro. Easily 25 years Shin's senior, the Taisa had not let vanity get the better of him. Instead of dyeing his salt and pepper hair black, as another might have, he wore it short and shaved back away from his temples for better contact. So another quirk of my copy of the book is it seems like the text is printed way too far in on the page. So it's like fighting the spine crease. So I can see like half the word and the rest just vanishes. Um, the margin, the outside margin is maybe a bit too broad. Let me find where we are. Instead of dyeing his salt and pepper hair black, as another might have, he wore it short and shaved back away from his temples for better contact with the neuroreceptors in his battle mech's neurohelmet. His dark eyes met Shin's directly and without judgment. Then he lowered his gaze so that his subordinate would not think him ill-mannered. Though the Taisa did not smile, Shin felt instinctively that he appreciated the depth of his bow and the respect it implied. Tarukito returned the bow fully and gracefully. Shin then bowed to the other man in the room. It was slightly disturbing to Shin that this man, who was obviously his junior, should hold the rank of Shosa, making him a superior. The only reason he would be here is because he is my commanding officer. I thought the reforms had done away with commissions being awarded on the basis of social rank alone. All I need is this kid giving me orders inspired by flower arrangements or using plans concocted as a result of consultation with the entrails of a Teixta. Whatever a Teixta is, we can assume it is some sort of space goat. Despite his misgivings, Shin took comfort in the grace and respect in the younger man's return bow. Tarukito spoke in a low voice, but one resonant with power and self-control. I trust your journey in system was not too difficult. No, Taisa. The pilot was most skilled and successfully threaded the needle between two bad storm systems. Good. Tarukito turned and drew Shin's attention to the other man with a casual gesture. Forgive my poor manners at delaying the introductions. This is your immediate superior, Shosa Hohiro Kurita. Oh, so he is a big name character then. Well, a big name related to big name stuff. Shin's heart leapt to his throat, and he failed utterly to keep the surprise from his face. Theodore Kurita's eldest son. He looks so different from the holographs I've seen. Shin bowed again, this time deepening the gesture and holding it longer. Excuse me, Kurita-sama. I should have recognized you. Hohiro returned the bow, a smile beginning on his face. There is no reason you should have known me, Yodama-san. Most of the official holographs were taken years ago and had not been updated for security purposes. Wait, no, he's young. We'll fix his voice as we go along. Though the smile remained, the look in Hohiro's eyes and his tone of voice shifted the conversation to a more serious level. I should also tell you that, even as your superior officer, I would appreciate all advice and help you can give me. In addition to your skill with a battle mech, I hope you will avail me of your vast combat experience as well. Shin bowed his head. You honor me, Shosa, but I am not worthy of such praise. I am, after all, only 2 years your senior, and I have not had the benefit of a Sunjang Academy education. Tarukito Nero smiled and opened a folder lying on the low, black lacquered desk. Your lack of a formal education would be considered a plus in many categories, Yodama. As Hohiro has aptly pointed out to me, your career as a warrior already spans 20 years. That means you possess a considerable storehouse of martial knowledge. Shin shook his head. Again, I am honored, but I think you read too much into the accounts of my early life. Yes, I was orphaned during the fighting on Marfik in 3028, but I was only 7 years old at the time. I was among those who fled the advancing Steiner troops. But it was only by purest luck that a group of guerrillas found and kept me with them, as an omen of luck. I will admit to planting the satchel charge that destroyed the bridge at Pawluk's Ford, but that was because I was the only person small enough to crawl through the drainage pipe. Hohiro shook his head slightly. Neither of us placed much weight on the accomplishments on Marfik because we realized that, while they required courage and cunning, they merely attested to your ability to follow orders. No, we were more impressed by the rage you organized against the stronghold of renegade units on Naja during the Ronin Wars. It was an extremely well organized and executed mech action for a leader who was only 18 years of age. Again, you credit me for what was my good fortune. Shin felt the hot flush of embarrassment over his cheeks. When the renegades tried to destroy our unit's training center because they hated us for being Yakuza, it came down to Giri. It was my duty to my compatriots and to those who had given us the honor of becoming mech warriors to lead my cadet company's defense. Had the renegades known the base area as we did, or if their mechs had not suffered equipment failures during the fight, I would not be here talking to you. The memory of a centurion. Um, that's not the name of a royal guard. That's a name of a battle mech variant. They italicize battle mech variant names, so um, it makes them like spaceships or boats or something in this case, which is, I think, the first time I've ever seen that done. Um, I can't remember if the other BattleTech books I've read did that, or if that's a Stackpole thing. It works though, but often they name their own mechs and give them their own names. Um, it'll be like a Centurion mech that he called, I don't know, Big Bertha or something, that sort of thing. The memory of a Centurion pointing its autocannon at the cockpit of his Panther suddenly hit Shin. If that cannon hadn't jammed, I would have been killed. Tarukito watched Shin for a moment, then bowed his head slowly. After so many years of soldiering with arrogant warriors who seek nothing but personal glory, your humility is as refreshing as it is undeserved. Your career since Naja has been exemplary. I look forward to your taking command of Hyo Company. Hohiro nodded in agreement with Tarukito's assessment. We will have it your way then, Yodama-san. I hope, in addition to your skill and experience, you will grant me some of your good luck as well. Shin bowed. I pledge all that I have and am to your service. Tarukito smiled broadly. Excellent. Now we... Oh, that's the wrong character. Excellent. Now we need fear no one. He clapped his hands twice. You were summoned here for tea, and that is what we shall have. After that, Tai Shin Yodama, you will have the run of Edo, and a chance to become acquainted with your new home. The rings around the world of Turtle Bay were etched across the night sky from horizon to horizon. The world's shadow slowly blackened the rings as evening wore on, but the furthest reaches still caught enough sunlight to burn brilliantly in crimson, purple, and gold. Though Shin had witnessed the effect during the dropship trip coming in system, it was entirely different looking up at the colors from the ground than from in space. Shin stopped where he was, gawking like a tourist. This world is certainly more beautiful than any other where I have lived. I hope never to lose my sense of wonder for a sight so magnificent. After some moments, Shin shifted the unopened bottle of sake from his left hand to his right, and set off again, carefully reading the street signs directing him through the hilly Edo landscape. With all the planet's heavy industry in space, mining the asteroids in the rings and refining the ore into raw materials, the city of Edo was lovely and serene and free of large industrial complexes. He caught himself remembering the words of his Oyabun back on Marfik. "We are civilized, Shin," his chief used to say, "and therefore should live in a civilized way." My Oyabun would have loved this place. Shin's path took him down a hill and through a darkened gate. He heard the hum of electronic equipment in the shadows, but nothing and no one kept him from passing through. The roadway wound off to the left and up the hill. As he turned the corner, his destination came into view. The building had been styled after castles raised in Japan 1,500 years before. Massive stone block walls formed the foundation of the 7-story high tower. Each level covered slightly less area than the one below it, tapering the structure gracefully to bring the hill's natural lines to fulfillment. The eaves of each level curled up at the corners into ferocious dragons' heads that stared down at the approaching mech warrior. Beneath the eaves, the gentle flickering of candles showed through the shoji panels to silhouette the intricate patterns of the wooden guard rails around each level's balcony. Shin let himself smile with true pleasure at the building. The way the rings hovered overhead and the 2 stands of pine on each side balanced the castle to perfection. The architect was a genius and the landscaper an artist. He mounted the steps up to the broad, flat courtyard before the towering building, then soundlessly crossed the wooden bridge over a white stone river to the entrance. 2 men bowed to him as he entered the foyer. As Shin returned their bows, he's going to hand them a bow and arrows. As Shin returned their bows and slipped his boots off, one man carried the bottle of sake away. Shin frowned, but a reassuring look from the remaining man told him the rice wine would be decanted and presented at the appropriate time. Just so long as they satisfy themselves it is not poisoned. Shin pulled a pair of black slippers from an alcove above where he had placed his boots and donned them. Wordlessly, he followed the remaining servant through the house, marveling at the beauty of the place. Someday, somehow, I will live in a palace like this. The beautifully painted shoji divided rooms from the wood floor hallways. In some rooms, the furnishings were quite modern and contained everything from tables and couches to holovid viewers and even holographic gaming tables. With one exception, the young men lounging in the room laughed and drank raucously. The one dour individual wore no shirt, but Shin had to look twice to be absolutely certain of the fact. Though the man was attempting to be stoic, his expression suggested that he wanted to scream aloud, and that he probably would have if his peers were not in the room. On the left side of his chest, a black line drawing of a dragon coiled from shoulder to waist and around, Shin surmised, to his spine in the back. The dragon's tail ran down the man's arm to just below his elbow. That is the first stage in getting a tattoo in the old way, with paint and a bamboo needle. If that fellow thinks it hurts now, wait until they go back in to give the dragon color and life. Shin grinned and nodded a salute to the man, which seemed to briefly relieve his pained expression. He must have done something special for his Oyabun to authorize a tattooing. Shin's guide led him up a cedar stairway, then paused next to a shoji panel. He drew it aside and waited for Shin to pass into the chamber before closing it and departing silently. Shin knelt and bowed to the room's only other occupant. I apologize for intruding on your valuable time. My gratitude knows no bounds that you have made this visit possible. Shin brought his body up, but did not make eye contact with the other man. I am Shin Yodama, born on Marfik in the 17th year of Takashi Kurita's reign. Takashi Kurita's reign. There we go. The skeletally thin old man across from him bowed respectfully, but remained aloof. In the name of the Ryugawa Gumi, I, Ryoichi Toyama, welcome you to Turtle Bay and Edo. He slipped his left arm from the gray silk kimono he wore and bared the left side of his body. This I got when admitted to the Dragon River gang in the first year of Takashi Kurita's reign. Though similar in design to the infant tattoo Shin had seen downstairs, the Oyabun's tattoo showed an artistry from another era entirely. Even the bullet wound scar on the older man's stomach could not rob the 45-year-old design of its exquisite power. The dragon, as it rose and fell with the old man's breathing, seemed to come alive. Shin could have sworn he heard the rustle of scales and the scraping of the beast's talons across the man's ribs. Shin forced himself to look away. Excuse me, Toyama-sama. I am a lout who knows only gutter etiquette. It is beautiful, but its power comes from you. Toyama said nothing as he pulled his kimono back into place. He tightened the obi sash once again, then looked at Shin expectantly. I see you have lost no fingers. Shin bowed his head. My masters have turned a blind eye to my failures. You do not wear a lapel pin to mark your affiliation. Forgive me, Toyama-sama, but the commander at my last station forbade us to wear tokens of our families. Toyama smiled and bowed his head. Taisa Nero and I have reached an understanding about that. Here, however, you must wear a device that identifies you with us in Edo. I will grant you such if you do indeed prove to be Shin Yodama. Shin sat up straight and removed his uniform jacket. He unfolded it carefully and set it down on the tatami to his right before unfastening the buttons on his shirt. As the chief of the Ryugawa Gumi had done before him, Shin bared the left side of his chest. I am Shin Yodama, and I belong to the Kuroi Kiri of Marfik. The Black Mist! The old man hissed in awe. I have heard, but I could scarcely believe. Shin's tattoo entirely covered his left torso and arm to just above his wrist. Stylistically traditional, the design consisted of a boiling black cloud. Gold flecks and lines curling in and out of the design defined the cloud's different parts and levels. Yet, even as the gold was very much part of the cloud, it was also something on its own. Its curving, sometimes jagged, lines followed the smooth muscles of Shin's chest, stomach, and arm, mechanically marking him as a man, yet clearly transforming him into something else, something more. Toyama bowed deeply. Then it is true. You are Shin Yodama, and you are a Buso Senshi. A proud smile spread across the old man's face. It is I who am honored by this visit. Shin returned the bow, relishing the respectful tones in Toyama's voice. Buso Senshi, a mech warrior. I am part of the bargain struck between the Yakuza and Theodore Kurita in his drive to save the Draconis Combine. Because of the services of the Kuroi Kiri in the war, we were given the honor of supplying the first of the new Yakuza mech warriors. I am one of those, one who fights for more than honor. The sharp clap of Toyama's hand snapped Shin from his musings. Come, Yodama-san, we will drink your sake properly, and then I will show the wastrels working for me what a real Yakuza is like. You are one of us now, one of the Ryugawa Gumi. Whatever you need, ask, for you embody the hope of the dragon, and we will not let that hope die. Listen, Echo. Yeah, I'm gonna do a ghetto George Takei. It's going to happen. I can't imitate what's his name, the Japanese voice actor for Kazuma Kiryu. My register just isn't that good. Uh, otherwise, that's who he is. He's literally Kazuma Kiryu, who pilots a giant robot, is what he is. Um, Chapter 6 Triad, Tharkad City, Tharkad. Or Tarkad? I'm not actually sure. I think I said Tarkad before. It's a TH, but sometimes that's a softer Tarkad. District of Donegal, Lyran Commonwealth. 20 June 3049. Trelwan! Victor Steiner Davion locked his face in a feral snarl. I don't care if Conrad Theodore Kurita stations his eldest son on Atreus to drool over Isis Marek. I don't see why his posting means I get exiled to some backwater. That the others in the room watched him with amused smiles only darkened and deepened his mood. I want to be on the Combine border, or even down near the Capellan Confederation. I want to be stationed where I can see some action. Morgan Hasek Davion raised an eyebrow, which I think is his brother? No. Oh, who is Hasek Davion? I can't remember who that guy is. I don't know if we've been introduced to him yet. You'll see plenty of action out there, Victor. Victor snorted derisively. Sure, periphery pirates and the occasional raid by some loony Rasselhaig unit wanting to prove they're tough. There's been no trouble on Trell since the birthing of the Great Death Legion. There's a series of books about the Grey Death Legion, which... So one of the cute things, this is an aside, one of the cute things about how it seemed fluff worked back then, back in my day, is for stuff like the Star Wars Expanded Universe and BattleTech, is BattleTech is kind of different. It's closer to what goes on with the Warhammer 40k Black Library situation. But was a cute thing that happened pretty frequently, very noticeably in the Star Wars Expanded Universe stuff, is somebody would write a book and it would introduce characters and events for the setting, and other authors would like crib those and use them and be like, oh, well, here's this character again. They're doing stuff. So this might be a nod to the author who did the Grey Death Legion stuff. Or it could be more official mandate from FOSSA themselves. I'm not actually sure. Anyway, aside over. There's been no trouble on Trell since the birthing of the Great Death Legion. He looked over at Justin Allard. Hell, the Kell Hounds have dispatched one company from their 2nd Regiment to take care of the pirates up there. That'll leave me nothing to do but cool my heels. Justin Allard glanced at Prince Hans Davion, then allowed himself to smile. I see you've been studying the troop assessment report. Damned right, Justin. Victor pointed to the map of the successor states tacked up on the wall of his room. I know where we've got what, and I've a fair idea of what the Draconis Combine has going up against us. You don't need troops up here in the hinterlands. Hell, a troop of youth scouts could defend that area against anything coming in from the periphery. Victor stabbed his finger at the border between the Commonwealth's Isle of Skye and the Combine's Diron military district. This is where you need me. We all know that when trouble erupts between the Combine and our forces, it'll be here. You've got the 10th Lyran Guard stationed on Skondia, Justin. I saw the reports listing Kai as being assigned there. And Morgan, I know you're rotating the 1st Cathil Ulans to Skye in the next 6 months. Why am I being left out? Damn it, I trained to be a mech warrior. I want to know what... Oh, I just don't know how to read. I want to go where that's what I can do. Posting me out in the middle of nowhere because Theodore Kurita did the same with his son offends me. Good old Teddy Kurita. Hans Davion shook his head. Ah, the impetuosity of youth. At that, Victor gave both his father and Justin Allard a withering stare, then turned to his cousin to plead his case. I don't expect those two fossils to understand, Morgan, but surely you can. You remember what it's like to be ready to take what you've learned and turn it into action? Morgan nodded slowly and clasped his hands at the small of his back. I do recall what it's like to be young and eager, cousin. Morgan glanced at Hans. I also recall that your father held me back until the time was right. Victor winced. So much of your history is wrapped up in the exploits of the first Cathil Uhlans, the Lions of Davion, that I keep forgetting how long you waited for your chance. I can see in your face that you sympathize with me, but that you also feel my father's plan is a good one. Something you've probably noticed by now, and I think I may have commented on, there appears to be a lot of internal monologue. Um, and I will, because there's so much of it, I may have to point it out occasionally when it's right in between speaking parts so that people know that, oh, this is something they said. Because something longtime viewers will have noticed who have actually read the books that I have read aloud is that I tend to keep character voice when doing character thoughts. Um, there are some books that will make that difficult to do, but if it drives people crazy, they can tell me, and I will adjust accordingly. But it's been years, and I haven't heard a comment on it yet. Resignation written all over his face, Victor pulled his dress jacket from the rack and shrugged it on. Why is it so important for me to be stationed at Trell 1? He held up his hand to forestall an immediate answer. And you can spare me the explanation about the 12th Donegal Guards being an excellent unit. I've read the files and agree that they're good. On the off chance that we do see some action, the enemy will have to be plenty tough to drive us off. Hans Davion's blue eyes narrowed. I believe you are well aware, my son, that dealing with the Draconis Combine has never been easy. In the past, all we needed was to understand how their culture measures honor and embarrassment, or balances duty and compassion, and we could predict what they might do and how they would react. In the past, up to 15 years ago, we could count on retaliation for every raid and a counter-move for every one we made. The troops would mount suicidal and foolish attacks just for the sake of winning honor for their families. More than once, a leader betrayed by his superiors committed suicide because he could not live with the shame of failure, even though that failure was not his own doing. It was madness, and we benefited from the predictability it gave their actions. The prince rose from his seat at the foot of Victor's bed and stared at the map. Over 20 years ago, before the war, Takashi Kurita ordered the creation of two new mech units, the Genyosha and the Ryuken. The Genyosha was an elite unit about the size of a reinforced battalion. Its mech warriors were the cream of the crop, and were trained to see honor as something on a grand scale, not a personal one. Their glories were the unit's glories, and the unit's glories were the Combine's glories. Under the leadership of Yorinaga Kurita, a brilliant mech warrior, the members of the Genyosha fought as a unit rather than as individuals seeking personal glory, and that made them deadly. Hans's eyes focused beyond the map. The Ryuken was a unit several regiments in size. It was built up to parallel Wolf's Dragoons, and its training style matched that of the Dragoons. As such, mech warriors in that unit also worked well together. They learned how to support one another and mastered tactics that made them formidable. When they faced their mentors in 3028, on a world appropriately named Misery, both sides were savaged. The Ryuken were not fit enough as a unit to take part in the Fourth Succession War when it broke out, but the Genyosha were. At the war's end, remnants of the Genyosha pledged themselves to Theodore Kurita. The prince turned back to his son. The Genyosha felt that Theodore's father, Takashi, had mistreated and dishonored their dead commander. A few Genyosha warriors even defected to the Kell Hounds. It was also at this time that Theodore drew to himself the remnants of the Ryuken, who had also lost their commander. He quickly organized training battalions around the Genyosha and Ryuken survivors, and also recruited heavily from among the Yakuza. Even though his father ordered the dissolution and division of the Ryuken and Genyosha, Theodore had put together an excellent military force. Justin cleared his throat. That's Allard. In fact, the breakup of the two elite units seems only to have spread Theodore's new military philosophy further instead of destroying it, as Takashi had hoped. While old liners did mount some revolts, and were largely responsible for what they call the Ronin Wars when Rasselhag went independent, Theodore's new and more efficient military doctrine won out. Victor chewed his lower lip. It was this new military doctrine that let Theodore pound us back in 3039? Hans hesitated, a bit stung by the question. That did indeed contribute to the military reversal we suffered. More important than that, however, was the number of mechs the Combine had available for use. Was the number of mechs the Combine had available for use. Theodore obtained reinforcements at an incredible rate, despite the fact that his father saw him as a threat and did things like trying to hold up delivery of spare parts and munitions. Victor frowned. That was stupid. He was cutting off his nose to spite his face. Morgan glanced at his chronometer and then straightened the line of his black and gold dress jacket. That, Victor, is what we thought, which is why we moved when we did. Theodore has proved his worth, and since that time we've been watching each other closely. Hans walked over and straightened the sunburst epaulette on Victor's left shoulder. When Theodore boasted his son to Turtle Bay and the 14th Legion of Vega 6 months ago, I felt he was sending us a signal. At first, we feared that a build-up in the area would oblige us to reinforce the Rasselhag border, and that would be politically bothersome. Victor saw a look of distaste wash over his father's face. Ryan Steiner's meddling again, I would guess. He's only my mother's second cousin, and the same relation to me as Felon Kell, but he causes enough trouble to be in a direct line for the Archon's throne. An odd thought struck Victor and made him smile. I wonder if it's the province of second cousins one generation removed to cause trouble. Felon got himself kicked out of the Nagelring, and Ryan married Morasha Kelsva to strengthen his power base with her claim to the throne of the Tamar Pact. As half the pact became a chunk of free Rasselhag Republic, it would be difficult for my father to build up troops in that area while still denying Ryan's requests to go to war to regain his wife's holdings. Victor looked up. I take it Theodore did not increase troop munitions shipments to his son's unit? Justin nodded carefully. As nearly as the Ministry of Intelligence can determine, he has not. It looks as though shipments to that garrison are sufficient to replace materiel lost fighting pirates and nothing more. Victor stepped back from his father and tugged at the wrists of his coat. Why do they keep moving their clothes? Is it just to add word count? Stackpole, what's going on? Maybe get someone to fit your suit to be more comfy, bro. Sorry, it's been relentless for this entire segment. I apologize. Victor stepped back from his father and tugged at the wrists of his coat. So you will send me up there to suggest to Theodore that you will answer him in kind? Hans shook his head. Both you and Hohiro Kurita are very good at what you do. Hohiro's scores from the Oh, I see. Hohiro's scores from the Sun Zhang were leaked to us as a courtesy, and they were excellent. We have given Theodore a similar look at your file. If he wishes our differences settled by the two of us, he will strike at the Isle of Skye. If he wants to leave our conflict to future generations, his son will strike at me. Victor's blue eyes narrowed, unconsciously mimicking the face his father made when concentrating. The analysis is flawless, as I have come to expect from these three. The challenge is there, as I have been trained to expect from Theodore Kurita. What of you, father? Do you wish the fight to fall to your next generation? Hans threw back his head and laughed while his two advisers exchanged amused glances. Yes, gentlemen, you were right. He did ask. Hans's smile faded as he rested both his hands on Victor's shoulders. I fought a war before you were born, and recovering from the war was long and hard. Deciding to attack the Draconis Combine 10 years later was probably a mistake. I should be thankful to Theodore for making that so evident. The prince looked down onto his son's face. In my day, some considered me a military genius, but it seems the title is generational in nature. My tactics in the Fourth Succession War worked because they hit at weaknesses my enemies had not recognized in their defenses. Just 10 years later, in the War of 3039, Theodore Kurita saw the flaws in my tactics and pointed them out to me in a most dramatic manner. It's true that we soft-soaped the whole story for public consumption, and given the nearly even exchange of worlds, the war looked like another stalemate. But those of us gathered here know how shocked we all were that Kurita could so successfully turn back the combined armies of the Federated Suns and the Lyran Commonwealth. Hans sighed heavily. The time for me to plan and execute a war is passing. Passing to Morgan and to you. A small smile tugged at the corners of the prince's mouth. Let the wars pass to your generation, and when you take the throne, you can decide when or where, or even if, to strike. If you become a great warrior, if you reunite the successor states to form a new Star League, you will make me very proud. If you never fight a war, I will be just as proud. Again Morgan looked at his chronometer. It's past time, my friends. I will agree with you that this discussion is more interesting than the Archon's Liberty Medals banquet is likely to be, but I also think it would be better held in a properly secure briefing room. Hans stood up and began to straighten his own jacket. The only real problem with shuttling court back and forth between New Avalon and Tharkad is that every night is taken up with awards banquets and other cultural events of questionable merit. He winked at Victor. But if we miss them, your mother will have our heads. Victor pointed toward the door. Then let's go. He turned to his father. Do you think I'll have to preside over similar occasions on Trail 1? Hans shook his head. Out there? I doubt it. Victor laughed and closed the door behind them. There is a silver lining to this cloud after all. Chapter 7 Gaara Deus Base, Scandia. Isle of Skye, Lyran Commonwealth. 30 July 3049. Kai Allard covered his mouth with one fist as he yawned. Oh, I'm here, Sergeant. What's the big problem? The small, blocky man looked terribly apologetic. Well, he says lieutenant, so he must be British. Geez, Lieutenant, I didn't expect you to show up right now. I just wanted you to appear sometime today. I know you wanted to get some shut-eye after that trip in on the Argus. Kai shook his head. Not a problem. With all my traveling, I've mastered the trick of sleeping on dropships even as they enter atmosphere. Dropships, incapable of interstellar travel by themselves, moved passengers and cargo from planets to jump ships. With its Kearney Fuchida jump drive, a jump ship was able to warp space around itself and its dropships, traveling instantaneously to another star system up to 30 light-years distant. Transit time between planet and jump point varied according to the type of star, but no one counted such journeys as pleasant or restful. To those not terribly familiar with the setting, Think highliners from Dune. It's not dissimilar, and there is politics involved. Um, None of this is going into the whole Starcom thing, which is like weaponized fascist, well, not really fascist, but weaponized dictatorial um, AT&T, space AT&T. They're nasty. Um, where were we? Right. The sergeant glanced down at his note pewter. The end of the month is coming up, and I need to get you checked out on your mech. I mean, we need to make sure nothing's shook loose. Besides, your mech is hardly stock. He half turned toward the mech bay, then waited for Kai to follow him into the cavernous home of the most fearsome weapons ever developed by mankind. A thrill ran up Kai's spine as he stepped into the bay's shadowy interior. Battle mechs ranging in height from 9 to almost 12 meters towered above him. The white and blue camouflage designed to hide mechs in Scandia's icier reaches softened some of the machine's harder edges, yet Kai thought it also made the mechs seem colder and more forbidding. Some were of humanoid design, with the look of men encased in giant, powered armor. Others resembled fierce animals or monstrous insects. A third category of mechs looked equally daunting. Most of them stood on bird-like legs, but the resemblance to living creatures ended there. Their squat, compact bodies sprouted stubby wings that bristled with laser ports or missiles in most cases. Missile pods, even, in most cases. The most fearsome of these, the Marauder, my boy, stood hunched over, with its twin arms ending in blocky weapon pods that contained lasers and terrifying particle projection cannons. Augmented by a cannon mounted atop the jutting torso, that weaponry made the Marauder one of the most deadly battle mechs ever produced. So, a bit of a lore aside, the Marauder is formerly one of the Unseen. I don't remember when that kicked in, when Harmony Gold decided to be turbo shitters about the whole thing. Suffice it to say, the Marauder is based on the what's it called? It's from Macross, the Zentradi mech. I believe it's the Glaug. Yes, it's the Glaug. Um, and there's a number of other pretty high-profile designs, like the Warhammer and a few others, that were all kind of taken from different anime series. And because Macross was adapted into Robotech by Harmony Gold was like, no, 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 we own that. You can't show that around. And which is bullshit, by the way, complete bullshit. But FASA was compelled to cease and desist for a while until they didn't have to anymore. But the Marauder is a classy design at any rate. Oh shit, we're actually going to talk about the Yenlo Wang? Cool. Sorry, spoilers for a paragraph later. The non-com led Kai back through row upon row of mechs. At one point, he plucked a thin vest from a basket and tossed it back to the mech warrior. Gray ballistic cloth formed the garment's outer layer, and Kai found its weight reassuring. Unsnapping the four clasps, Kai opened the jacket to reveal the interior layer of black Gore-Tex that lined the vest. Sandwiched between the Gore-Tex and body armor ran tubes of coolant fluid. The garment, when plugged into a mech's command couch, helped the pilot's body deal with the incredible heat buildup in the battle mech's cockpit. Kai had stripped off his shirt and donned the cooling vest by the time he and the sergeant reached their destination. The smaller man stopped abruptly, but Kai neatly avoided running into him.
This is it, isn't it, Lieutenant? I mean, this is the real Yenlo Wang.
Kai nodded solemnly.
The real thing. This is the Yenlo Wang.
The Centurion standing before them lacked the bulkiness of some other humanoid mechs. Though its slender lines made it seem more alive, the autocannon muzzle that replaced its right hand would never let anyone mistake it for a living creature. The head had been designed with a crest reminiscent of an ancient Roman helmet, but both Kai and the sergeant knew it was more than decoration.
The crest had been fitted with thousands of sensors that, in fact, made it the giant war machine's eyes and ears. Yenlo Wang did not share the other mech's ice and snow camouflage. Until recently, it had been kept on the planet Kestrel and the Allard Ancestral Holding. It had been painted in a mottled brown and black pattern, with some blue near the faceplate, mimicking the coloration of a falcon. Over the left breast, the falcon rampant crest of the Kestrel militia had been stenciled in black. The smaller man shuddered.
I saw it in its first fight, you know.
He's going to have a different voice until I decide to settle on one. You're just going to have to live with it.
You were on Solaris 20 years ago?
Kai smiled solicitously. The man shook his head.
Well, I wasn't actually there. I saw the mech go against Peter Armstrong's when the fight was first broadcast. Let's see, I was stationed on Cor Caroli at the time. I remember watching Armstrong's Griffin. I think he called it Mars.
Ares, Kai corrected him gently.
Yeah, Ares.
The sergeant shrugged sheepishly.
Hey, all them old god names get confusing, you know. Isn't Yenlo Wang a god too?
The Chinese god of the dead, Kai whispered. The king of the nine hells.
The sergeant smiled broadly.
Yeah, that's it. That's why the holovids of that fight were billed as the Battle of the Gods. Well, I saw it all. On a whim, I bet on your father, mainly because the other guys gave me great odds. When your pop blew the hell out of Armstrong, I cleaned up. Got doubled odds because he killed Armstrong.
The man's ebullience made Kai's mouth run sour.
I remember the time I sneaked a viewing of a holo. I remember the time I sneaked a viewing of a holovid of that fight and started bragging about the fact that my father had killed a man. I must have been, 6 years old at the time, and was using the holovid to win one of those "my father can beat up your father" fights with a kid from school. It upset the other kids so much they had to send him home from school. That night my father sat me down for a long talk. He held me close as we both watched the fight again, and I could feel him tremble. He told me what he'd been thinking as the faceplate on Armstrong's mech exploded out. He wanted Armstrong to punch out, to escape the death of his mech, but when fire filled the cockpit and shot out in 20-meter-long gouts of flame, my father's heart sank. Killing a man is not easy, and never should be, he told me. I was too young to fully understand, but I've learned since then, and I have never forgotten. Killing is, ultimately, a failure of all other methods to influence and change someone. That it is sometimes the only way to protect yourself does not give to it any more sanctity or merit.
The sergeant patted Yenlo Wang on the foot with an affection another man might lavish on a pet dog or horse.
I never thought I'd ever see this baby up close.
He grinned sheepishly as he turned back to Kai.
If you have no objections, sir, I'd like to take care of your mech personally. You know, sort of become your personal tech. In addition to me other duties, of course.
Oh, I see. So he's an engineer, which means he's Scottish now. Unfortunately, he's going to change voices again, unless I just don't do it. Kai returned the sergeant's smile, his thoughts and feelings deflected from their somber course.
It will be my pleasure, Sergeant, to have you work on my mech.
Kai glanced up at the Centurion.
And I'm sure he won't mind at all.
The tech nodded and patted the mech's foot again.
Don't you worry, sir. Old Marty Rumble and the Yenlo Wang are going to become the best of friends. I'll have him running tip-top.
He moved to steady the rope ladder running from the Centurion's cockpit to the ground.
First, let's get you up there and see what he can do. I'll be in the targeting course control tower. Call me on TACCOM 27 when you're ready to roll.
Kai mounted and quickly scaled the ladder. Once inside the mech's cockpit, he waved Rumble away from the ladder and hit the retraction switch. With the ladder reeled into the storage space in the mech's chin, the polarized faceplate slid down and clicked into place. Sealed tightly, the cockpit pressurized itself, making Kai's ears pop. Kai dropped into the mech's command couch and removed his long woolen trousers, leaving on his standard issue shorts. The chill air raised goosebumps on his legs, but as he flipped the switch that started the fusion reactor burning in the mech's chest, he felt warm air currents eddying up into the console. Well, he knew that the cockpit could become so stiflingly hot that his shorts would be all he could stand to have on. After fastening the crisscrossing safety belts, Kai pulled the cooling vest's power cord from the small pocket on its left side and snapped it into the coupling on the left side of the command couch. It took a half second for his flesh to get used to the sensation of a million worms crawling over it as the sluggish cooling fluid started to flow within the vest. Then he smiled, recalling one instructor's comment, "Better caressed by worms than parboiled." Kai opened a panel on the right side of the command couch and pulled out 4 short cables and a strip of shiny paper. He peeled the medical sensor adhesive pads from the paper and pressed one each to his thighs and upper arms. He then snapped the rounded ends of the cables to the 4 sensor pads and threaded the plug ends up through the loops on his cooling vest. The plugs clinked against one another as they flopped loosely near his throat. Reaching up and behind his head, Kai pulled his neuro helmet from the shelf above the command couch. He settled it down over his head, letting the bulk of its weight rest on the cooling vest's padded shoulders. He worked it around, adjusting it so the ring of neurosensors built into the helmet fitted snugly against his skull. It gave him a bit of trouble, but he finally got it seated correctly.
I guess I need to get my hair cut again.
He inserted the med sensor plugs into the 4 sockets at the helmet's throat. Moving his head around for a test, he satisfied himself that the helmet's hexagonal faceplate was indeed centered. He pressed down on the Velcro tabs that kept the helmet in place. Ready for the next step, he reached out and touched a glowing yellow button on his command console. The computer's synthesized voice filled his neurohelmet. "I am Yenlo Wang, who presents himself to the king of the 9 hells." Unless that's bitching Betty, which would be hilarious. But I'm going to assume they customized the voice. Bitchin' Betty. All weapons. Oh, never mind. Reactor overheating.
Yes, I know. I know my reactor's overheating. That's why everything is red.
I am Yenlo Wang, who presents himself to the king of the 9 hells.
I am Kai Allard Lau.
White noise played through the speakers for a moment before the computer replied, "Voice print pattern match obtained. What is the one immutable law?" Kai swallowed hard.
Honor thy mother and thy father.
Authorization confirmed. Know well, Kai Allard Lau, you have made your parents proud. Kai rocked back in his couch, barely noticing as the war machine's monitors blinked to life, and the computer brought all the weapon systems online.
The computer's not programmed to say that.
Then he remembered his father wanting to climb back into the cockpit one more time when they met before the senior Allard departed for Victor's graduation ceremony.
I should have known he was up to something when he insisted on marching Yenlo Wang into the belly of the dropship that brought me here. I've not been in it since then.
A lump rose in his throat.
He's allowing me to take Yenlo Wang and use it for my tour of duty. Was one hell of a graduation gift, but that was something else.
The words only barely choking out, Kai made a whispered vow.
I will do nothing to betray your faith in me. Nothing.
He keyed the radio.
Centurion to course control. Can you read me?
Rumble sounded a bit breathless.
Just got here, Lieutenant. Lieutenant. Cork on ready. Are you all set?
All systems go.
Good. Turn to heading 180 and proceed south. Just walk it. Just walk it for the first click, and then you can take it up to cruising speed. The gunnery course isn't very sophisticated. Mostly scrap steel structures with sensor pods that'll make your mech put targets up on the display.
Roger.
Kai hit two buttons on the command console to the right.
I'm sending you diagnostic feeds on TACCOM 30 and 31. That's mechanicals and gunnery, respectively.
Rumble sounded impressed.
You can do that?
Yeah, it's a special option used on Solaris so the bookies can monitor a mech's performance during a fight. It lets them lay off bets when a mech takes internal damage that isn't clearly visible to the spectators. Feed starts now.
Streams of data poured across Kai's secondary monitor. He watched it long enough to assure himself he was sending the right information out on the correct frequency, then called up another program that presented a computer diagnostic view of Yenlo Wang on the monitor. The computer reported the mech's trio of active weapon systems were primed and ready. Because of the mech's special modifications, especially the Pontiac 1000 heavy autocannon replacing the lighter Luxor AC in the mech's right arm, and the added weight, the Centurion no longer carried a long-range missile launcher and ammo bays for the same in its chest. Ammo for the autocannon was stored in the Centurion's right breast. Yenlo Wang also sported twin medium lasers forward and aft in its center torso. The neurohelmet fed Kai's sense of balance directly into the computer, enabling the 50-ton metallic giant to lumber forward and execute the turn to the south with amazing agility. At the pilot's direction, the computer instantly translated its microelectric pulses into gross motor movements by sending out jolts of electricity to contract and expand the mech's myomer muscles. With his many years of training, Kai made the death machine carry him along almost effortlessly. The Centurion strode from the mech bay boldly and smoothly, but Kai detected and berated himself for tiny errors. He wouldn't allow himself the excuses of a 2-month layoff because of his transit to Scandia or his general level of fatigue, but pushed himself to do better.
Concentrate, Kai. Your father handled Yenlo Wang as though he'd practiced with it every day for the past 20 years. He marched into the Argus as smartly as any elite drill team member. You're sloppy and slow. You have to do better.
Kai punched another button on the command console with his right hand. A meter from his face, running from the cockpit's low ceiling down about 1.5 meters and measuring 2 full meters from side to side, a computer-generated display burned to life. Though the curved display took up only a 160-degree arc, it provided a full 360-degree view of the area surrounding the Centurion. Faint lines broke the display into forward, left, right, and rear arcs of fire, and 2 gold targeting crosshairs hovered in the center area. The translucent display allowed Kai a clear view of his command console, its data monitors, and the all-important heat level displays. By focusing beyond it, he could see out through the Centurion's faceplate, but the view from 10 meters up tended to be a bit distorted. The initial display showed the terrain outside in a magnified form using visible light, making it the rough equivalent of looking through a pair of weak binoculars. The program used by the computer to digitize the external visual feeds exaggerated crucial detail and included labels for items identified. In this case, it meant an increase of resolution for the gunnery range warning signs and the identification of a passing aerofighter as a friendly 65-ton Lucifer on maneuvers from the base. That is a pretty heavy air vehicle. Um, It should also be noted that that isn't necessarily the weight of things. Like when you see mech tonnage, there's some debate on this, last I checked. But usually the tonnage there is how much it can hold as opposed to how much it actually weighs. Generally, they weigh a lot more than whatever their stated tonnage is, because some walking 10-meter tall mech probably doesn't weigh uh, only like 30 tons. How much is a... And the Yenlo Wang might have a different tonnage loadout. I can't remember. Yeah, it's got like an Act 20, right? In the arm, traditionally. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Where were we? Kai keyed the radio.
I'm a click out. I'm going to take Yenlo Wang up to top speed.
Without waiting for confirmation from Korkan, Kai leaned the mech forward and started its legs pumping. Huge metal feet pounded into the snowy ground, crunching through the icy crust of early winter snow and actually digging up dirt from below. As the speed crept up to the mech's maximum ground speed of 64.8 kilometers per hour, Kai felt his heart begin to race.
After 2 months of doing nothing, this feels great.
Rumble's voice crackled as it came out of the speakers.
All systems reporting fine, Centurion. 15 seconds to range on my mark. You'll get no artificial visuals on VisLight scan, only Magers or infrared. Magres, not Magers. Only Magres or infrared. Labels on all three. Mark. Good luck.
Kai dropped his hands onto the joystick controllers on the arms of the command couch. The control in his right hand directed the crosshairs that targeted for the autocannon and the forward laser, while the other joystick handled the aft arc laser. The button under his right thumb triggered the autocannon, while the index finger triggers on both controls fired the lasers. Warning klaxons heralded his entry onto the gunnery range with hideous shrieks. Snowshoe hares sprinted away from the small wooden shack the computer labeled as a goblin medium tank. Kai dropped the forward crosshairs onto its projected image, let them pulse bright gold for a second, then stabbed his thumb down on the firing button. With a thunderous roar, the Centurion's autocannon sprayed out a stream of depleted uranium projectiles. They traced a line up the hill and into the shack. The door exploded in a cloud of splinters, then the roof disintegrated, spreading shingles all over the snowy hilltop. For the barest of moments, the unsteady structure remained standing, despite looking as though an invisible buzzsaw had split it right down the middle. Then, as Kai fought the autocannon's tendency to rise, the metal storm blew the rest of the building to pieces. Almost instantly, off to the left, the computer painted the rusting skeleton of a bent and broken oil derrick with a label marking it as a Valkyrie. Kai swept the gold cross over to cover it and snapped off a shot with the chest-mounted medium laser. The ruby beam shot low, vaporizing snow into great gouts of live steam. They rose up to form a thick white cloud that hung over the derelict tower, obscuring Kai's line of sight. With his left hand, Kai shifted the display from VisLight to magnetic resonance. The display went from normal visual analogs to a vector graphic picture of the landscape. For a half second, the derrick appeared as it truly was. Then the computer scrambled its lines and reformed them into the silhouette of a light mech the derrick was supposed to represent. Kai brought up the crosshairs and triggered the autocannon again. Through the display, he saw steel crossbraces spark and snap as the heavy weapon's shells slammed through them. The computer's projection, taking into account the nature of the damage that would have been done to the Valkyrie, sent shards of armor flying from the mech's chest. Kai saw the Valkyrie stagger as reports of the incredible damage done to it scrolled by on his primary data monitor. The Valkyrie collapsed as its real-world analog sagged slowly to the ground. Beyond it, the computer identified another imaginary threat and another one after that. Kai, acting without thinking, sped through the targeting range. When the heat buildup in his mech caused the heat monitors to rise from blue to green and then to yellow, he temporarily abandoned use of the autocannon and concentrated on using the lasers. Though they could do less damage, and the forward laser had a tendency to shoot low, they produced less heat for the mech to dissipate. At the end of the run, sweat pouring off him like rain, Kai laughed aloud.
I feel like I've been resurrected from the grave. That felt great.
Rumble's reply fed back the enthusiasm in Kai's voice.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, that was bloody incredible. Your time score ratio was only 20 points behind the base record, and that was with you compensating for a misaligned forward laser.
Kai smiled broadly.
Thank you, Mr. Rumble.
He wanted to make another comment, but hearing the pleasure in his own voice sent a haunting echo through his mind.
That was easy, Kai, because those targets weren't shooting back. You've excelled at a game, but nothing more. One mistake, one misstep in battle, and you'll be very, very dead.
Kai sobered up.
We'll have to realign and recalibrate the forward laser, and I can't bypass a target, then take it out with the rear laser.
Rumble sounded confused.
But you did that after you executed the standard maneuver to evade fire from a Savannah Master hovercraft. That's the toughest target we have on this course, and you snagged it with a clean shot.
It was sloppy and stupid. That's the sort of thing you might expect to see in an Immortal Warrior holovid.
Kai caught himself and filtered the anger out of his voice.
It's not his fault, Kai. You got carried away and got lucky. He's just commenting on your performance.
Kai forced some levity into his voice, though he no longer felt pleased with himself.
You have to remember the basics, Sergeant, and that's what these training runs are for. Let's leave the flashy moves for fighters on Solaris and the holovids.
Yes, sir.
And let's downplay the fact that this is Yenlo Wang and how well I did on this run. In fact, if we could downplay who my father is, I'd appreciate it. I don't want some idiot who thinks he's a hero to be challenging me to timed runs through this course just to prove how tough he is.
Got it. See you down in the mech bay. Stall I-1F-00.
Roger.
Kai switched off the radio as he turned the Centurion and headed back into the base.
Be careful, Kai, and stay in control at all times. Your father programmed this mech to remind you that he and your mother are proud of you. Don't do anything to change that.
Chapter 8 Sector 313 Alpha, Sisyphus's Lament. The Rock System, Oberon Confederation. 13th of August, 3049. Hound Deuce to Hound Leader. I have positive contact. Felon punched an increase in magnification to the computer of his wolfhound. Kenny Ryan might think he's a chip off the old block, but we'll put an end to that lie right now. Lieutenant Jackson Tang answered immediately.
Copy that, Deuce. Is this confirmed?
Affirmative, leader. Damn it, Jack, I know the amount of iron in this rock has been playing hob with our sensors. I have a vislight image at 1000 mag. I mark one locust and one griffin at a click. Their gold paint scheme and red insignia stand out against the rocks. Want me to count pores on the pilots for you? The tone of Tang's reply was apologetic.
Negative, Deuce. Good work. I've got your position. We'll be working our way up.
Felon glanced at his auxiliary monitor, where the computer displayed a diagram of the star system for a myriameter in radius around his position. Up near the top of the display, Felon saw the icon representing the jump ship Cucamulus, but it was only shown at half-intensity green. That meant the asteroids between Sisyphus's Lament and the ship prevented communications between it and Tang's lance of 4 mechs. Likewise, the half-intensity red icon used to mark the last known position of Captain Wilson and the company's other 2 lances meant those other mechs were incommunicado. Hound Leader, do I sit put until we establish a comlink with the base, or do I move in? I have cover out another 500 meters. Felon punched up a data feed and had the computer relay it to Jack Tang's blackjack.
Hold on, Deuce. The data feed is coming across fuzzy. Let's try to stick together on this. Don't want you jumped like you were back on Gunsberg. I'm one ridge behind you. Trey and Cat are coming up to your left.
The young mercenary frowned. Guess I deserved that. Roger, leader. Felon wiped his sweaty palms against the ballistic cloth covering of his cooling vest. His right hand brushed the cool metal of the belt buckle Tyra had given him. He smiled and adjusted the Mauser and gray M43 Needler pistol on his right thigh. He knew that if his cockpit module were breached, this cold rock had just enough of an oxygen atmosphere to rust the rocks and let him freeze to death if no help came. Even if I could draw the pistol with frozen fingers, it wouldn't do me any good. Somehow, though, it is comforting to wear it. It must be the superstition of routine that makes me feel that way. Strapping the thing on is the only normal piece of this whole operation. The Cucamulus had arrived in the rock system at a pirate jump point. Because of the massive gravitational forces and subsequent warping of space around stars, jump ships were limited to entering star systems at a safe distance. Safe being dependent on the size and energy level of the star. Most jump ships appeared at the apex or nadir jump points located directly above or below the stellar poles, because those were the most efficient places to unfurl the ship's solar collectors to recharge the Kearney-Fuchida jump drive. While the jump ship recharged, the drop ships made the long journey in-system from the jump point. Pirate points were jump points a safe distance from the sun, but calculated to be on or near the star's orbital plane. This placed the jump ship much closer to a system's planets, but also put the ship at much greater risk during jump. Pirate points had to be calculated exactly because of the increased amount of matter located in and around the planets. In a system consisting mostly of asteroids, like the Rock System, because it has asteroids, I get it. A jump ship captain had to be a genius or crazy to bring his vessel in at a pirate jump point. Janos Vandermeer, captain of the Cucamulus, could qualify as either. He brought the Q in close to the largest asteroid. Known as the Rock, it had given its name to the whole system. It had an atmosphere that made it habitable, and aside from the need to harvest water from the ice balls floating in the asteroid belt, it was supposed to be a pleasant place. Kenny Ryan's pirates had just begun to use it as a base, and the Kell hounds hoped to catch them by surprise by bringing the Q in close. When the ship appeared in system, the initial scans picked up no communications at all from the rock. Vandermeer had ordered an immediate scan of the surrounding area and got snippets of radio contact from several sites in the asteroid belt. Captain Wilson deployed her forces and slowly began a sweep of the asteroids best suited to supporting a pirate band's secret haven. And we got Sisyphus's lament. After 5 hours of humping up and down these iron mountains, thank God we got something. Felon glanced sourly at his display, then punched up another increase in magnification. Holy mother of God, Hound Leader. Ryan's folks are running from something. I have definite visuals on lasers going in and out and something I mark as long-range missile fire incoming. Over across the valley, Felon saw a small bird-like locust ducking and dodging between reddish mounds of rock. The awkwardness of its gait was accentuated by the large hops the asteroid's lighter gravity allowed it. Missiles arced up and over the hills behind it, peppering the whole area around the fleeing mech with explosions. Staggered barrages herded the locust diagonally across the hillside. Then another mech appeared in the snowy pass between two bluffs. Oh my God, we're getting the Mad Cat moment! Yes! Yes! We're getting the Mad Cat moment! Oh, goodness. I didn't think we were getting this so early. Oh, I'm so happy. Ah, this is iconic. Deep lore. Uh, Felon frowned heavily as the computer sharpened and tried to label the image of the new mech. Confused, the computer identified the mech first as a catapult, then almost immediately reclassified it as a marauder. Catapults are shortened to CATs by the computer, and marauders are shortened to MADs. It's got that hunched over torso with the bird legs common to both designs, all right, and it's got the catapult's wing mounted LRM launchers, long range missile launchers, but it also has the Marauder's weapon pods. And I've never seen that flat gray color scheme before either. Who and what the hell is it? We got the Mad Cat. Oh boy. The unidentified mech jabbed both blocky pods at the Locust, sending out twin ruby lasers to skewer the Locust's right flank. The first beam melted the armor from the Locust's torso, making it drip steaming to the asteroid's surface, while exposing the mech's skeleton and internal structures. The second beam stabbed through the hole the first had made. Its fiery touch ignited the machine gun ammo stored in the mech's chest, then destroyed the Locust's gyro stabilizers. As the light mech's right side sagged in on itself, the mech tumbled and rolled down the hillside. Its headlong spill ended with a jarring collision against a huge iron boulder the color of dried blood. Three more of Ryan's bandit mechs broke from cover and tried to rush across the valley toward Felon's hidden watch position. Two of them, the humanoid griffin he'd seen earlier and another humanoid mech, a panther, darted from cover to cover. Both pilots used their mechs, jump jets, to quickly cross areas strewn with rocks too small for cover, but large enough to slow their sprint speed. Bringing up the rear came another humanoid mech. Instead of arms, it sprouted twin-barreled weapon pods. Larger than either the Griffin or Panther, and without jump jets, it moved more slowly than either of its compatriots. Felon sensed its pilot's panic as he guided the rifleman down the hillside and discovered he'd boxed himself in. The rifleman is another one of the unseen. It's not the Spartan. Which one is it? It's one of the destroids from Macross. I want to say the Griffin might be the. Which is the Griffin? The Griffin might be the one that's based on Dugram from the show Fang of the Sun Dugram. I can't remember off the top of my head. Lots of unseen, so this is happening before all that, probably. Unless he had the legal go ahead to do that, I don't know. I can't remember when that happened. Huh. Hound leader, continue your present heading to make the plane. We've got to help trapping the rats. We've got help trapping the rats. Confusion rang through Jack's voice.
Oh, what?
Felon shrugged and moved from cover. I can't identify our help, but they're on the ridge a kilometer off, driving Ryan toward us. Tang laughed lightly.
Enemy of my enemy is my friend?
Felon saw Tang's black and red blackjack appear down on the edge of the plain. Tang's barrel-chested humanoid mech had arms that ended in autocannon muzzles, with the muzzle of a medium laser riding piggyback on the outside of the forearm. The Scout Lance leader wove his mech through the dolmen at the nearest edge of the plain, closing on Ryan's mechs without being seen. Opposite Tang's position, two more strange-looking mechs entered the battlefield. Felon's computer again vacillated in assigning a label to the new machines. It's calling them Warhammers because of the chassis type, but the addition of Marauder-type arms instead of the particle projection cannons is giving it fits. Both mechs moved in on the trapped rifleman. Ryan's Griffin turned its attention to Tang's approaching blackjack. Felon tight-beamed a warning to his lieutenant, then brought his mech around from behind the outcropping he'd been using for cover. Where's the blackjack, the one that's based on the rifle? I can't remember now. Actually, I think the rifleman is called the Rifleman. In Macross. I can't remember now. Anyway. Opening a wide-beam broadcast, he snapped a challenge at the pirate captain. Is that Felon doing it? Yes. Over here, you excuse for retroactive birth control. We're the ones you said would never get you. Move it. Let's prove natural selection was correct. The Griffin reoriented itself toward him, then Felon saw it freeze for a moment. The wolfhound Felon piloted had a humanoid form and walked upright, but its unusual silhouette gave most enemy pilots reason to pause. Its right wrist ended in the muzzle of a large laser, and 3 medium laser ports dotted its scarlet chest in a triangular pattern. Most startling, however, was the mech's head and cockpit assembly, whose design accented and heightened the implied threat of the wolfhound's lean deadliness. The head had been crafted for both image and function. Its jutting muzzle and twin viewports combined with the upthrust triangular sensor panels on either side to give the wolfhound a canine appearance. Felon had taken the image one step further and painted the mech's muzzle to appear that the war machine was bearing white fangs in a fierce snarl. Aluminum strips inlaid beneath the paint job outlined the teeth so that the mech's wolfish grin appeared even on magscan and infrared sensor modes. Just mind games. Good stuff. Felon started his mech down the hillside as Tang's blackjack broke from cover and raised both its arms. The mech's twin autocannons fired salvos at the pirate Panther. Felon's computer marked the distance between the blackjack and the Panther as 800 meters, putting the shot at the extreme edge of Tang's effective range. Despite the difficulty, Tang hit with two of his shots, pulverizing armor plates over the Panther's heart. Picking up speed, Felon worked his way through the debris scattered over the plane's nearer side. As he saw it, Ryan seemed more intent on running from the mechs pursuing him than evading the Kell hounds. It's his funeral. With each jump, the Griffin came closer and closer to Felon. As the range dropped to 600 meters, Felon brought his mech to a stop and crouched beneath the last house-sized boulder between him and the smooth valley floor. One more jump and you're mine. 500 meters may top out my range on this large laser, but if Jack can hit it, Max, so can I. Come on, Kenny Ryan, let's get it over with. Felon's right hand moved the joystick that dropped the golden crosshairs onto the Griffin's broad chest. A dot in the center of the cross flashed red. Felon hit the firing stud beneath his right thumb and felt a wave of heat wash through the cockpit as the large laser unleashed its beam of coherent light. The coruscating beam stabbed into the Griffin's left shoulder, blasting away steaming shards of half-melted ceramic armor. As though unsatisfied with the armor it had destroyed, the beam's terrible energy cut through the myomer muscles on the mech's upper arm, which split like hunks of meat being torn to pieces by some beast. Lastly, the beam heated the ferrotitanium humerus to the point where it glowed white, further melting myomer muscles. Ryan hit his jump jets at the last second, but it did nothing to mitigate the damage. The abrupt takeoff wrenched the damaged arm badly, snapping the metal bone and sending the severed limb flying. Suddenly unbalanced, the Griffin reeled like a drunken acrobat and slammed into the ground on its right shoulder. The jump jets pushed the one-armed mech across the plane, leaving sparks and armor plates in its wake until Ryan finally shut them down. Felon stared at the Griffin's wreckage. My large laser shouldn't have done that much damage. Those other guys must have really softened them up. Felon shifted his vision to the Panther Tang was sparring with. Yeah, it's been hit all over, but most of the damage had been done to the legs and arms. Has been done to the legs and arms. A cold chill ran down his spine as Felon realized the Griffin and the rifleman had been similarly savaged. Either those other guys are very unlucky, or they're placing shots with greater care than almost any mech warrior this side of Jamie Wolfe or my father. As if they had read his thoughts, the 3 unknown mechs moved in. The one that had brought the Locust down came to a stop just over 900 meters from the Panther, and brought both pods up. Twin large laser beams flashed out and caught the Panther in the back of its thighs. What little armor still remained on the pirate mech's legs vanished in a cloud of ceramic steam. Myomer muscles ran like water and boiled away where they touched the titano-magnesium femurs that held the panther upright. The lasers amputated the panther's legs with surgical precision. Its legs cut out from under it, the panther smashed flat on its back and did not move as the dust stirred up by its fall quickly drifted down to coat it with a red blanket.
Blake's blood. Did you see that, Felon?
A tremble in Jack Tang's normally calm voice betrayed his unease. Felon stared at the computer projection of the range and damage done to the panther. 700 meters for a large laser? That's impossible. They can only hit at 450 max. He hit a button that opened a tight channel between him and Hound Leader. I don't like this, Jack. Keep Trey and Cat out of this. Jesus Christ almighty, look at what they've done to the riflemen. The twin mechs moving in on the last operational pirate machine simultaneously let fly with short-range missile barrages and bursts from their dual autocannons. The missiles covered the trapped rifleman with explosions. The blasts staggered the machine and opened cratered wounds in its armor, which oozed melted metal. The pilot, fighting for control, somehow managed to keep the rifleman on its broad, flat feet. Felon suddenly found himself hoping for the impossible, that the rifleman could win out. The gray mechs it faced did not give the pirate a chance. Sparks lanced from the barrels of his guns as one of the pilots walked his autocannon fire across them and into the rifleman's right shoulder. Armor flew in a blizzard from the damaged limb. Then an explosion flipped the arm up and out. It cartwheeled through the air, bouncing off several rocks before it crashed to the ground. The second mystery mech raked one stream of autocannon shells across the rifleman's belly. The projectiles ripped jagged scars in the mech's armored flesh, while the other autocannon's destructive fire gnawed away at the rifleman's already mauled left shoulder. It sliced through the remaining armor and drive mechanisms with the ease of a razor carving flesh. The mech's left arm lurched, then dropped toward the ground, only to be jerked to a halt by useless drive chains and belted links of autocannon ammo. Swinging slowly back and forth, the arm dangled like an ornament, mocking the rifleman's once formidable destructive capabilities.
How deuce I'm going to hail these guys. I'll offer them the salvage on these mechs. Maybe they'll give us Kenny to take back and collect our pay.
Fear boiled up from Felon's gut. Jack, don't. Get the hell out of here. He started running the wolfhound forward. Move it, Jack. They're up to something.
Get back here, Felon. That's an order.
Anger rippled through Tang's voice.
Damn it, follow my orders just for once.
And let you die? No way. Move it, Jack. Jump out of there. The two mechs that had dusted the riflemen locked their weapons down on the blackjack in the plain below them. As they triggered their bursts, the rifleman shot at both of them with its torso-mounted medium lasers. At the same time, Tang hit his jump jets, sending his mech into the thin atmosphere on silvery ion jets. The riflemen's attacks caught the mystery mechs by surprise, spoiling their aim somewhat. Still, despite the distraction, the range, and Tang's jump, one of the pilots managed to hit with both autocannon shots. The depleted uranium slugs zipped up the back of the blackjack's left leg. Its armor peeled off and fell away as if it were diaphanous silk instead of tons of ceramic armor. A silver spray of ions shot out the back of the blackjack's thigh, starting the mech into a slow spin. Feather the right, Jack. This rock's light gravity and thin air mean you can go further. Get clear. He'll make it if that other mech doesn't take a shot at him. Bursting into the open, Felon turned toward the first gray mech he had seen. He brought the wolfhound's large laser up and triggered a shot, but being beyond his maximum effective range, the shot did nothing. The first gray mech launched 2 flights of LRMs at the slowly spinning blackjack. Moving at 10 times the damaged mech's speed, the lethal rockets slammed into it mercilessly. Explosions wreathed both legs in golden red flame, then a silver corona ripped the fireball in half. As the brilliant light of uncontrolled jump jets vanished, taking the blackjack's legs with it, the airborne mech's arms flailed helplessly to counter the backward somersaults the missiles had given it. Felon tried to turn away as Jack's mech tumbled to the ground, but he could not tear his eyes from the display. The mech's leg stumps slammed into the ground first, scoring deep furrows in the planet's surface. The sudden stop reversed the mech's rotation and smashed it face first against a rusty hillock. Armor flew whirling in uneven clumps. Then the blackjack's domed head sheared off. It bounced halfway up the hill as the torso flipped and twisted awkwardly. The blackjack's body ripped itself apart as the autocannon ammo nestled in its breast detonated. Hot, salty tears poured down Felon's cheeks as he cut his mech to the right. The first mech's twin lasers burned parallel tracks through where he had just been, reducing iron ore to glowing slag.
There, damn it, you missed. You're not invincible.
Something inside his head screamed at him that what he was doing was suicidal, but another part of him didn't care. Yet his awareness of the hideous threat posed by these unidentifiable mechs made him key a dump of his battle recorder's data and create a simultaneous battle feed to a wide beam broadcast. He pumped extra power into the broadcast, draining it away from the Wolfhound's rear arc medium laser.
Trey, Cat, anybody. I hope like hell this makes it out. Get clear. This data is more important than getting killed to avenge either one of us.
Felon dipped the Wolfhound's left shoulder as if preparing to cut back that way, then broke even more sharply to the right. The mech he faced again sent two laser blasts. Sizzling through the space he should have occupied.
Your average is falling, friend, and your heat has to be building up.
Felon glanced at his own heat levels and found them hovering on the edge of the yellow cautionary zone.
You can dish it out with all those weapons, but that means you can't be carrying much armor. Now let's see if you can take as good as you give.
The computer's range indicator put Felon at 350 meters and closing fast. Felon planted the Wolfhound's right foot and cut to the left, then, only 2 steps later, planted the left and dashed straight in at his target. The other pilot, determined not to miss a third time, had spread his mech's arms apart to have one weapon available no matter where Felon moved, as long as it wasn't straight up the middle. Laughing triumphantly as the enemy's large lasers flashed past on either side, Felon dropped his targeting sight straight on the mech's jutting beak. He stabbed his thumb down on the large laser's firing stud and tightened his fingers on the buttons for the medium lasers.
Got you!
The large laser hammered into the enemy. Oh, there is not a period there. The large laser hammered into the enemy mech's left side. It peeled back armor, and for a moment Felon hoped against hope it had pierced the mech's armored hide. As his medium lasers stitched the mech's left arm and leg with stinging ruby bolts, his heart began to sink.
All I'm getting is armor, but that's impossible. Any mech hauling that much of an arsenal should have paper-thin armor. It's crazy.
The gray mech's 2 gunnery pods converged and focused on the Wolfhound. The dual large lasers vaporized all the armor on the Wolfhound's broad chest the second they touched it. Felon's computer barely had time to update the diagnostic display on the secondary monitor when 4 medium lasers, 2 mounted beneath the larger lasers on the arms and 1 each on the sides of the mech's chest, impaled the Kell Hound mech. Searing waves of heat swirled up through the Wolfhound's cockpit as the lasers destroyed the magnetic shields controlling the mech's fusion reaction power plant. A rainbow of warning lights ignited the command console and a warning siren began to wail. "Reactor detonation inescapable," shouted the computer. "Eject! Eject!" Felon slapped his right hand on a large, square button. He heard 2 explosions beneath him and felt them jolt up through his command couch and pound his insides into aching jelly. An invisible hand jammed him down into the couch and snapped his helmeted head back against the padded headrest. A roar filled the cockpit, drowning out the warning siren's screams, and the Wolfhound's escape module lifted free of the mech's doomed torso. Felon jammed his right foot down against the pedals at the foot of his command couch. That boosted thrust through the control jet on the right side of the Wolfhound's head, hurling the escape pod up and to the left. He pushed the burn for 3 seconds, then poured on the left thrust to get as much altitude as he could. Below, on the asteroid's surface, the headless Wolfhound lumbered forward. The fires burning in its chest silhouetted the mech's skeleton. Then a roiling ball of argent plasma freed itself from the engine casings and engulfed the Wolfhound's torso. In a flash of blinding silver fire, it consumed the mech from the knees up and let the lower legs trip and pinwheel across the ochre plain. Felon fought against the shockwave of the fusion engine's explosion, but it shook the Wolfhound's head furiously and upended the muzzle. It also caused the escape pod to prematurely deploy its parafoil, which failed to expand properly in the thin atmosphere and became fouled as the pod slowly flipped up and over in a lazy imitation of the dying blackjack. Felon pulled his feet off the thrusters and snapped the gyro stabilizers online with the press of a button. The asteroid's inhospitable surface filled his viewports as a massive spark arced across the command console. Controls flickered and monitors died in a puff of acrid white smoke. As thick as it was, the smoke could not obscure the vision of the asteroid as it grew larger and larger. Stabbing both feet down on the thrusters, Felon threw his head back and braced for a collision. Hope it's just the monitors that shorted out, not the jets themselves. This better work. Felon Kell never found out if his effort did succeed, for the escape pod's 3rd bounce across the surface tossed him against his restraining belts, and one of them parted. Slewed half out of the command couch, he could do nothing to help himself as the 4th bounce smashed his neurohelmet against the command console, and blackness stole his sight. And that is where we will call it for this Monday. Making some headway. So yeah, that's one of the legendary first encounters with a clan mech. Pretty wild. So as the old story goes, inner sphere mechs had great difficulty identifying what clan mechs were the first time they saw them, because their targeting computers would pop up saying, "Oh, its profile says it's a Marauder. No, its profile says it's a Catapult," and so it would say Mad/Cat. So they get called Mad Cats a lot, but they're actually Timberwolves, as I recall. Right? Timberwolves? Pretty sure it's the Timberwolf. Yes, it's a wolf something. So the other mechs that it had there, it mentioned one of them by name. Or one of them by description, not by name. Where are you? It could have been a storm. What is that thing called? The storm something or other. Could have been one of those. Because that has like a sort of a cockpit profile or a chassis profile that looks sort of Marauder-ish. It leans forward a bit. Not a Stormcrow. The other one. Maybe it is Stormcrow. Novacat? Whatever. Anyway. It has big mountings, or a lot of different mountings for various beams on its arms. Nasty thing. Hits like a truck. So yeah, basically one of the big things that the clans have going for them is basically all their equipment is extended range equivalent. They have better cooling. They have lighter armor. So they outrange generally. I don't think they have anything that's strictly more damaging. They're just straight up better in every other category. So they can hit you from farther away. They're able to hit you with. They're able to field a lot more weaponry on lighter chassis, um, and are just generally quite nasty. And have better technology than the inner sphere mechs of the era have. So I'm very pleased that we were able to do one of those early engagements with clans in just our second outing. Uh, After our first reading, our first series of chapters, I was starting to worry that we weren't going to get any mech combat for a while, but this segment was uh, almost all thriller, no filler. So yeah, we'll continue reading this until either the book falls apart, which is probably going to be soon, uh, or um, or we're done. You know, so we'll keep banging through this. I don't know what we'll do after this. Maybe we'll do more Full Metal Panic. I'm not sure. That actually gets us to almost a quarter of the way through. Almost. Next week we'll be at about a third-ish. Anyway, we're moving through. We're moving along. Things are going. Um, Anything else salient? Not really. So for this week, we still have some streams going. We've got on Wednesday, we'll be reading through Down Below Station by C.J. Cherry. We'll be getting through to book 5, or part 5 of that, I think. Yeah, getting through to part 5 of that. And this Friday, we'll be reading through more of Death's End by Shijin Liu. We'll be hitting nearly the halfway point. We get to find out, I get to share a bit of fan artwork, and we will be, how long is that one? Jesus, that's a pretty long, yeah, it's going to be a long one Friday. Anyway, things are going to escalate further in Death's End. Anyway, with that, I'm going to call it for today. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. If you are tuning in for the first time, or listening to this after the fact, I do these live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at about 12 noon U.S. East Coast time, or Eastern Standard Time, or UTC minus 6-ish, daylight savings time permitting. Because we live in a barbarian third world nation or something. I don't know. This third world country we in the U.S. call home. Why do we still do that again? Just about everyone doesn't like it. But we still do daylight savings. So it screws us up for a certain amount of the year for doing time translations. Anyway, if you don't want to catch me live, or can't catch me live because that time is wholly inconvenient for you, which is understandable, no biggie. Feel free to keep listening to them after the fact. I update playlists about every month so that they stay up to date. So another 2 weeks, and we'll get those updated. And yeah, other than that, hope you all are having a good one. Stay safe, stay sane, and be decent to each other. See you all next time. A toodaloo.